Washington Post is at it again. You know what they do? They hire these writers from India. I think there's a per piece cost, like for example, maybe $1,000 per piece or $2,000 per piece, which when converted into Indian rupees comes to a very hefty sum. And these people are encouraged to write stuff that seemingly looks right. But sometimes when they get caught, we need to, as responsible journalists, show the name and shame these people. And I'm going to talk about one person by the name of Karishma Mehrotra. And this person writes occasionally for Washington Post. I mean, you will see a lot of these hoily-poilies, the NDTV, ex-NDTV bummers, all of them writing there, and they probably get paid well too. Good luck to them. Well, you're making some money in dollars, and you also get to put that you are a contributor to Washington Post, which is what Karishma Mehrotra's Twitter profile says too. That's all fine. As long as you report news and not lies, everything is fine. What happened in this case? And this is not the only person. There are lots of cases like this. I'm just highlighting this to tell our viewers that before you read something, please double check and triple check to make sure that it is right. For example, there was one Truth Social tweet supposedly of Trump ranting that Modi is not picking up his phone, that he's not responding. That was a fake news. Likewise, there was another one which Trump seems to have picked up from somewhere and said that looks like India has stopped buying Russian crude. And see, the whole thing came about because something in Twitter said, I mean, some people tweeted that 3 Indian public sector oil undertakings like Indian Oil and Mangalore refinery or something like that, and a couple of other people had stopped for the last 4 or 5 days or something like that. Nothing from the government, and I think we should wait and hear from the government before we know for sure that that is what is happening. So Trump is applying pressure in his own way, but you, the viewer, should understand that some of these times something that looks very real is actually not. So let's take a look at this particular case, because again, this is the same thing. Karishma Mehrotra, operational conduit of editorial misconduct. She writes for Washington Post, but that's not all. She writes for many other organizations. But once I saw where she originated from, I knew that this is another left-leaning loony. Left-leaning loony. The prestigious outlet, Washington Post, is once again facing criticism for disseminating misleading or unverified information, particularly about India and various global conflict. This is something to do with Operation Sindoor, okay? Just so you know what I'm talking about. And you probably, if you are on social media, may have come across some of these news stories which all prove to be false. But the point is not that. The point is, where did this person pick it up from, and when confronted, tried to weasel her way out of it? That's what is the problem. Half-truths, mistranslated quotes, and context-stripped headlines, all these things have become the normal for Washington Post. I don't buy Amazon, at least I don't list my products on Amazon. I do still buy from Amazon, but I do have a problem with Jeff Bezos owning Washington Post. He might give them editorial freedom, but this is bullshit what they are putting out. And I think he's losing money on this. I'm just wondering how long he's going to keep it before he loses interest and casts it aside like garbage that it has become now. While these outlets often claim moral superiority, why is Washington Post so important? It is believed that the Beltway reads it. And whatever is given here, the Beltway laps it up, and then all the other syndicated news agencies pick it up, and complete Western hemisphere is filled with this nonsense. That's why this is a problem. And India and many other countries, including, I would say, Trump and the Republicans, don't have a way to fight this thing back. Of course, they are trying on X, but then Trump got into a spat with Elon Musk. So what do you say? I mean, Elon could just as easily turn off the spigot and say that I'm not going to allow Trump's account again on X. So these things have become normal now. I'm not saying he is going to do that. Elon is a little bit more sensible, and in fact, he's actually beginning to put his head back into running his businesses, and some interesting and impressive things are coming out of his company. So that's good for as far as America is concerned. So what is the real problem here? false claims aimed at defaming Indian media. How misinformation overtook Indian newsrooms amid conflict with Pakistan. See, what happened was the West was not prepared to see the amount of news that came in news media, including PGurus, where we were one of the first ones to talk about Kirana Hills, about how India had inflicted substantial damage. We had a lot of generals come in and weigh in, and you got a lot of information from not just us, but once we broke the news, many news media picked it up, and then there was a lot of dissemination of media. But what exactly happened was that Washington Post, instead of saying that, India was winning the war, not until some other people like Spencer came in and said that, look, India won this thing decisively, the news in the Western media was that Pakistan was thumping India. It took a while for India to respond back. For example, they put the DGMO there and a couple of spokespersons, and that was all impressive. But that again was a little bit late. India was not ahead of the game. They were just responding. In fact, India is using a different strategy now. India is giving Pakistan the drip treatment, one drip at a time, 3-4 days at frequency. And this is really killing them because they cannot say anything against it, and the truth is there for everyone to see. You can go and look at the satellite pictures, not just of India's, but also of other third-party places to verify for yourself. So in this case, Karishma Mehrotra tried to portray Indian television as a hyper-nationalist echo chamber. Well, some of these news may have been picked up and circulated. For example, I saw one channel talk about the fact that Modi is not responding to Trump and therefore Modi is king. I think they should have checked their sources before coming out, because it looked too good to be true. While Trump does come up with hyperbole, he doesn't really he stops short and waits for the other side to respond before he starts doing something. So anyway, so be that as it may, if you all watched it, I think it came in Hindi, it may not have come in English. So the Hindi audience who might be also watching my English videos understand that sometimes people get it horribly wrong. Well, the thing was, WAPO or Washington Post itself relied on false claims and unverifiable resources. Unverifiable resources like what? A WhatsApp message allegedly from a Prasar Bharati employee about a coup in Pakistan was central to the Washington Post article. See, look at her profile in X. Washington Post, worked in Scroll, Indian Express, Wall Street Journal, CNN, Bloomberg, Radiolab, Fulbright. I don't know what this Fulbright Pulitzer finalist, Red Ink, SOPA mean. Names don't ring a bell, but all the other things all tell you that these are all prestigious publications, and I have a feeling that it is somebody paying all these people and saying, okay, go write for these people, and then they know how to publish it, and they pay some money for the other side also. For example, for Washington Post or New York Times or Wall Street. Even Wall Street Journal is now becoming full of crap. I'm sorry to say this thing. So they have a challenge. When media, like for example, social media is able to give things instantly as they happen, your newspaper doesn't have that luxury. It can't print news every second minute. It has to wait a 24-hour cycle. And this is where the newspapers are losing out. And I think what they need to do is what we all do. Be able to respond faster on YouTube or on other media channels, and then say that if you want more details, do read it in the next day's paper, when they'll be able to give a little bit more context. But all of this should be truthful, in my opinion, but that's where truth is becoming casualty in all these things. So this pattern of negligence is seen not just one, but by many others. We're going to show you a couple of other instances also where something like this is happening. Especially the big mistake that UPA did in their tenure is to open social science programs in institutes of technology like the IIT. There was no need for doing that. This was done purely because somebody could hide behind the name of an IIT graduate to milk that fame and then pour vitriol on India. Thank you. Aryabhatta Suprasidha Shishya. Don't make that into an acronym. Okay, you know who I'm talking about, and that person could get offended. But in my book, that's what he is, Aryabhatta Sarvasreshta Sishya. And you guys can guess who I am mentioning in your comments for this video. Well, what has happened is IIT name is there, somebody comes in and writes some nonsense. Sometimes they take one small thread from one particular publication, make a whole story out of it. That's not this one, that's another one that's been dissected in the media now. I need to do all these things because many of you just read the headlines and maybe some 2 or 3 paragraphs and then come up to conclusions. And please, these are all some of the problems. When somebody puts out news like this, they need to realize that their image is tarnished forever unless they print a retraction and also explain what happened. In this case, the origin could not be verified. Somebody on a WhatsApp message claiming to be Prasar Bharati. I mean, would Karishma Mehrotra be claiming as a Washington Post employee, even though she might be just contributing one article here and there? See, that's the point. They try to stretch the truth. Even here, if I look at her, her profile here, you would have to look and see what it was the work that they have done in Washington Post or in WSJ. How many articles have you published? Are you a regular contributor? Are you on their payroll? I am going to tell you, my guess is no, 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 and no. Basic journalistic verification standards were bypassed. So this is a huge problem, viewers. Where do you get news that is reliable? That's the only reason why I'm running PGurus. Some of the time you may not say that, you may not agree with my observation. That's because the lies are a lot louder than the truth. What did Washington Post do? They falsely reported that Indian media claimed that the Pakistani Prime Minister had surrendered. I mean, he's already a toothless, not even tiger, a cat. What is he going to do, to resign, or who cares? This guy is the one that's meeting with Donald Trump. That should tell the whole world who runs the writ in Pakistan. I mean, this was known to us for a long time. Now it is this failed marshal or 𝗘𝗙𝗙𝗏 marshal. He is the one who's running the lot. And the problem here in this particular article about PM surrendering was a specific outlet, that is TV9 Bharatvarsh, was cited falsely. The correction later removed the claim. No video evidence or transcript was cited. So all this indicates willful insertion of false narrative. Washington Post also claimed Indian media aired footage from the Sudan conflict, pretending it was from Pakistan. Retracted upon exposure, source of footage was misattributed or entirely assumed without validation. So Washington Post is plumbing new depths. And I'm saying this in a very responsible way. I mean, Washington Post needs to shape up, or people will start to catch on. I mean, you think that this is going to stop here? Once people see a contrarian view, people will share and people will watch that to understand why somebody is disagreeing with what Washington Post had published. It takes time though. Lie goes much faster than the truth. By that time, a lot of things could have happened. A lot of other things could have gotten triggered based on the lie. That's unfortunate. But at least let's be careful. Let us be conscious of our own responsibility to look at more than one view before we make up our minds. Now, Washington Post report further mistranslated Hindi expressions. A phrase like Karachi mein tabahi, typically used to denote chaos, was inaccurately translated to mean complete destruction. So see, somebody say, oh well, no, in my book tabahi means destruction. No, if you have to understand what a word means, there is a dictionary. You have to go and look at the dictionary to understand what tabahi is. And Washington Post frequently demonstrates an editorial bias in selecting extreme or exaggerated versions of Indian coverage to present to Western audiences. Again, I tell you, everybody that I talked to after return from India after Operation Sindoor thought that India had convincingly lost. And I mean, tell them, look, this is not what happened, that there is a huge machinery that's at work trying to portray this as something it is not. But the thing is, they have made up their mind, because my rebuttal came 10-15 days later. And by that time, something else has occupied the 24/7 news media. So what do you do? So this is the real problem. You Multiple corrections are issued after publication, not before. Why could they have not done their work before? So if you retract after retract after retract, then really the thing is the original news has come out with all the lies, and you put the retraction somewhere in a corner of page 14. Who's going to read it? Nobody combs news page by page. So these are all things that Washington Post needs to pay heed to. There are other people, like I said, who have even Padma Shris, who are also columnists for Washington Post, and God only knows what they are putting out. Now, finally, this lady finally fessed up to it in a sort of roundabout manner. A previous version of this article contained several errors. It omitted attribution for and misstated the origin of a WhatsApp message about the arrest of Pakistani General Asim Munir and the alleged coup. So this was another news that she had put out, that there was a coup in Pakistan and that Asim Munir had been arrested. And all this was based on a WhatsApp message by supposedly somebody who was working for Prasar Bharati. Not, the name wasn't picked up. She didn't quote, this is the name of the person. This is the person who quoted it. An Indian journalist said he received the message and he said it came from an employee of Prasar Bharati news organization, not from the organization itself. The article also incorrectly said that TV9 Bharatvansh reported that Pakistan's Prime Minister had surrendered. So what happened here? Prime Minister surrendering is by the news channel, but the WhatsApp message is about the Pakistani general, the Chief of Armed Forces, Asim Munir. He was the one who was supposed to have surrendered, or he was the one who was supposed to have been overthrown. So where is the Prime Minister and where is the Chief of the Armed Forces? How can you get so much horribly wrong? And then she tries to paper over with something else. You can pause here and read what she exactly said. And then here are some of the things where the original report says one thing and the updated report says something else. We have 4 examples for you. I'd like you to go through these things. If you are watching it on a phone, you can pinch your fingers to make it bigger to read exactly. We have highlighted the portions where the news has been first originally reported wrongly and then a correction put out. You can do that online. What about the newspaper? How do you do it under a newspaper? Washington Post, get your act together. You need to clean up your narrative. You are getting cheap news and you are also paying less for it. Unfortunately, you are getting fake news. The sooner you realize it, the better it is, because these things will be caught, and once you are labeled as somebody who's peddling fake content, nobody is going to read you. And I'm sure Washington Post subscription is falling through the roof. I mean, I don't know when they are going to completely stop publication. I mean, Jeff Bezos, maybe it's a fancy, he's made billions doing something else. Maybe he just wants to keep it for the prestige. Maybe he wants to, enter into politics himself. Who knows? These are all things where the prominent Western publications, Washington Post, New York Times, BBC, all these people are under the lens now. I mean, we have already told you about the close ties of the New York Times editor with the top-ranking members of the CCP. So we know who is planting all these things. Anything anti-India news is welcome because they want to try and tarnish India. A lot of psychological operations are also masked as journalism. They use Indian journalists as internal validators of external discrediting narrative. The big takeaway here, Washington Post is using somebody, and I don't have to tell you who that somebody is weaponizing Washington Post as a legitimizing vessel, that if it came in Washington Post, therefore it must be right. If it came in New York Times, therefore it must be right. If it came in Wall Street Journal, therefore it must be right. Please double check. If something looks a little bit like something smells wrong, please do double check and make sure that the information you get is right one. Karishma's factual distortions and negligent reporting were not incidental. They align with the Washington Post's structural imperative to project India as a destabilizing, unreliable actor. The article's retractions proved technical failure. Its original publication proves malicious alignment. India can no longer afford to stay silent. Media watchdogs, public institutions, and other informed citizens must begin calling out these lies. These lies have gone too far, I'm afraid. And I mean, Rajiv Malhotra ji and I have been saying this for a long time. And what can I say? This is really, really sad. Also, I wanted to mention that I'm shocked to know the sudden passing of my good friend 𝗥𝗘𝗙𝗙𝗦. He is, I think, younger than me, and last time I saw him, it was in April, and he looked really healthy. And the news that's coming out of Silicon Valley is that he had dinner at a friend's house, and he came home and had a heart attack, and he collapsed. And my heartfelt condolences to the family, and I hope that God will give them the strength to recover from this. Some people are not very sure of how this could have happened. And the coroner's report says that it was indeed a heart attack. It doesn't suspect foul play. So I'm going to leave it at this. And if I think at this point of a tragedy for the family, I'd like to give them some solace and comfort, and hopefully they'll come out of this stronger. Thanks for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe to our channel. Don't forget to click on the bell button for notifications. Namaskar.